In my part 1 video of the dissection of the 1914 doctrine, my attempt was to show how untenable the doctrine of 1914 is without even touching the date of 607 BCE. The second video then looked at the latest wisdom of Watchtower concerning the year 607 BCE. And we learned that they rely on a fixed date, which is 539 BCE. And then from there they go to 537 BCE. And there's not really an explanation for that. But anyways, let's stick to that. And then claim that the Jews have been back in Jerusalem in autumn of 537 BCE. To then find out when Jerusalem was actually destroyed, they count back 70 years from 537, what gets them to 607 BCE. So there is a 70-year period that the Bible apparently talks about that seems to be pretty important to their 1914 doctrine. And this video is about finding out what the Bible actually has to say about the 70 years. Therefore, we go to the Watchtower Library to find out where the Bible talks about 70 years. So we take the Watchtower Library, enter in quotation marks the 70 years, and then go to the reference Bible and let's see what it has to offer. And I will go through that now verse by verse. Might be a bit boring, but I think it's important to show you that you have to take it as a whole and consider everything the Bible has to say. And that's what I try to do. So, the first two verses are from the book of Genesis. It's Genesis 5 verse 12, and you will see the text in the video. And Canaan, sorry, I can't pronounce the biblical names in a correct English manner. I struggle in my native language with that, so please just bear with me, okay? And Canaan lived for 70 years, then he became father to Mahalalel. Then Genesis 11:26 says, and Terah lived for 70 years, after which he became father to Abram, Nahor, and Haran. I think it is safe to say that the age of Canaan and Terah, when they became father, are not of interest in this context at all. So we're going to ignore Genesis. If you disagree, drop me a comment, and I would be curious about your lines of argument for that. Anyways. The second verse is in 2 Chronicles, and I will take two verses to not rip sentences apart. It's 2 Chronicles 36, 20, and 21. Furthermore, he carried off those remaining from the sword captive to Babylon, and they came to be servants to him and his sons until the royalty of Persia began to reign, to fulfill Jehovah's word by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had paid off its Sabbath. All the days of lying desolated, it kept Sabbath, to fulfill 70 years. We know this text from the videos before, and it is definitely relevant. So what do we learn? We learn that the land would hold Sabbath. I wonder if in verse 21, the fulfillment of the 70 years can be linked directly to the Sabbath, or to what has been said before about the fulfillment of Jehovah's word. So I struggle with the claim that the Sabbath of the land would be specifically 70 years, but I'm not too sure about that. But what we learn is there are 70 years and the land would hold Sabbath. Okay? Next verse is from Job, but actually it's just a footnote. So I will skip that. Look it up for yourself if you're curious of what it says, but it's again just a lifespan of Job. Psalms 90 verse 10. In themselves, the days of our years are 70 years, and if because of special mightiness they are 80 years, yet their insistence on trouble and hurtful things. For it must quickly pass by, and away we fly. The lifespan of humans according to the Bible is probably not relevant for this discussion. So let's keep it out. Then you can see in the screenshot there's Isaiah, but let's keep that for the end of the video. That's my bonus content, so to say. Stay tuned. Go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah 25, verse 11 and 12. That's why there are three occurrences, because there's another verse. But anyways, Jeremiah 25, 11 and 12. And all this land must become a devastated place, an object of astonishment. And these nations will have to serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And it must occur that when 70 years have been fulfilled, I shall call to account against the king of Babylon and against the nation is the utterance of Jehovah, their error even against the land of the Chaldeans, and I will make it desolate wastes to time indefinite. So verse 11 established 2 points. First, the land will be devastated. Second, these nations, plural, will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. Now verse 12 is extremely interesting. And the most interesting thing to me is that you hardly ever find any specific discussion of this very verse in Watchtower material, at least in what's available in the Watchtower Library. Why? Well, let's read it again. Verse 12, and it must occur that when 70 years have been fulfilled, so they are over, I shall call to account against the king of Babylon and against that nation, is the utterance of Jehovah, their error even against the land of the Chaldeans, and I will make it desolate wastes to time indefinite. So it talks about what happens when the 70 years are fulfilled. So after they have actually ended, what would happen? Jehovah would call to account against the king of Babylon and against that nation. As we know, Babylon was conquered by Cyrus in 539 B.C.E. We learned that even from Watchtower material. And the Babylonian king was killed. With the conquering, the nation of Babylon ceased to exist. They became a part of the Medo-Persian Empire. A little quote from the Inside Book on the topic of Belshazzar. I think it's the very end of the article. It says, with the death of Belshazzar and the apparent surrender of Nabonidus to Cyrus, the Neo-Babylonian Empire came to a close. This makes it, to me at least, 100% clear that in no way, the 70 years could have ended any later than in 539 BCE. Watchtower tells us that the 70 years ended with the restoration of true worship in 537. But at that time, the nation of Babylon has ceased to exist for almost 2 years. And the former king of that nation was dead. D-E-A-D. Dead. Can you punish a dead person? No, you can't. Therefore, to claim that 537 is the end of the 70-year period plainly contradicts the Bible. There's no way around that verse. If you're not surprised, take that verse, Jeremiah 25, verse 12, put it in quotation marks and search your own Watchtower library and be surprised about how often they actually discuss that verse, because it just gets away with their stuff. Okay, third verse from Jeremiah, it's 29 verse 10. For this is what Jehovah has said. In accord with the fulfilling of 70 years at Babylon, I shall turn my attention to you people, and I will establish towards you my good work in bringing you back to this place. In this verse, we learn that Jehovah will turn his attention to his people and bring them back to this place. Does that allow for the interpretation that the 70 years would only be fulfilled when they were back in this place, wherever this place may be? No, because the immediate action after the fulfilling 70 years at Babylon was the return? Nope. Was God turning his attention to his people, not the return. Okay? Next verse is Daniel 9 verse 2. In the first year of his reigning, I myself, Daniel, discerned by the books the number of the years concerning which the word of Jehovah had occurred to Jeremiah the prophet for fulfilling the devastations of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. This verse, shown here from the reference Bible in the Watchtower Library 2015, talks about fulfilling the number of years concerning devastations, in plural again, of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. This refutes the argument that the 70 years only started with the final devastation of Jerusalem, because Daniel could not talk about devastations in plural, necessary to fulfill 70 years. But that's translated differently in other Bibles, and their Silver Sword changes it, so it's not a major point, but it's a curiosity that it has been fixed in the latest 2013 edition of the New World Translation. Okay, Daniel 9 verse 2, not too important for this video. Zechariah 1 verse 12 is the next verse. So the angel of Jehovah answered and said, O Jehovah of armies, how long will you yourself not show mercy to Jerusalem and to the cities of Judah, whom you have denounced these 70 years? This verse shows us in a crystal clear way that the 70 years can by no means be exclusively linked to Jerusalem alone. But we have to consider the cities of Judah too. So another Watchtower argument refuted just by reading the Bible. Zechariah 7 verse 5. So to all the people of the land and to the priests, when you fasted and there was a wailing in the 5th month and in the 7th month, and this for 70 years, did you really fast to me, even me? This does not really help us to put the 70 years into a historical frame, but only tells us what supposedly happened during 70 years. Honestly, to me, it's not even that clear if the 70 years, the same 70 years are meant that we currently have a look at. So what I will now bring to the screen is a little graph that I created showing Watchtower's claim that they take 537 that you can see in the top right corner of your screen now, 537 B.C.E., and they take the 70 years and count back from 537 to get to 607 BC as the date for the destruction of Jerusalem, which is their foundation for the 1914 calculation. The problem is that Jeremiah 25, 11 and 12 definitely set the end of the 70 years to 539. There's no way around that, because Babylon was conquered by Medo-Persia and the king was killed. So you see the arrow going from 537 BCE to 539, and Jeremiah 25 referenced to explain why in reality it cannot be 537. And Zechariah 1 verse 12 refutes that the 70 years are specifically tied to the city of Jerusalem. And that would, that takes away all their argumentation for their 6 or 7 BCE. Now it's getting a little tricky, because honestly, I don't see a clear 70-year period. I mean, in their articles on the destruction of Jerusalem, they talk about the period where the Jews have been made to pay tribute to Babylon from 609 BCE to 539 BCE, and that's why I put it in here. But honestly, in 609 BCE, the only historical account I was able to find was that the pharaoh Necho the second gained control over Judah in the Battle of Megiddo. But the Bible actually talks about using the Babylonians to kind of suppress the Jews for that time, or the Israelites. And an open question that still remains in my head is, was the land actually devastated according to Jeremiah 25:11 in 609? Might very well be the case, because the Egyptians had to pass through the land of Judah, and if an army passes through a land, that causes devastations usually. But at least there was the Battle of Megiddo taking place that might have devastated the land, but the Babylonians did not really commence before the Battle of Carchemish in 605 BCE. This would not exactly add up to 70 years of service for Babylon. But honestly, it's not my take to explain you what the Bible, how to interpret the Bible properly. I just show you evidence that makes it impossible for the Watchtower take on it to be correct. But remember, I left out a verse or a book in the Bible that was Isaiah, and it is Isaiah 23. And let me read to you the verses 15 to 18. And it must occur in that day that Tyre must be forgotten 70 years, the same as the days of one king. At the end of 70 years, it will happen to Tyre as in the song of a prostitute. Take a harp, go around the city, O forgotten prostitute. Do your best at playing on the strings. Make your songs many in order that you may be remembered. And it must occur at the end of 70 years that Jehovah will turn his attention to Tyre, and she must return to her hire and commit prostitution with all the kingdoms of the earth upon the surface of the ground. And her profit and her hire must become something holy to Jehovah. It will not be stored up nor be laid up, because her hire will come to be for those dwelling before Jehovah, for eating to satisfaction and for elegant covering. That's pretty interesting, because there's a 70-year period prophesied regarding Tyre as well. Now, please join me in learning how Watchtower explains this period. The book on Isaiah's prophecy, part 1, chapter 19, on page 253, paragraph 21. Isaiah goes on to prophesy. It must occur in that day that Tyre must be forgotten 70 years, the same as the days of one king. Following the destruction of the mainland city by the Babylonians, the island city of Tyre will be forgotten. True to the prophecy, for the duration of one king, the Babylonian Empire, the island city of Tyre will not be an important financial power. Jehovah, through Jeremiah, includes Tyre among the nations that will be singled out to drink the wine of his rage. He says, these nations will have to serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. See how they apply Jeremiah? True, the island city of Tyre is not subject to Babylon for a full 70 years, since the Babylonian Empire falls in 539 B.C.E. Evidently, the 70 years represent the period of Babylonia's greatest domination, when the Babylonian royal dynasty boasts of having lifted its throne even above the stars of God. Different nations come under that domination at different times, but at the end of 70 years, that domination will crumble. What will then happen to Tyre? Are you as blown away as I were when I read that the first time? Here they explain that the 70 years do not exactly add up, but represent the period of Babylonia's greatest domination. We're talking about the same Babylon at the very same point in history that Jeremiah prophesied the Jews would have to serve for 70 years. Can you please help me to wrap my head around how Isaiah's 70 years can be related to Babylon's period of greatest domination, but Jeremiah's 70 years to Jerusalem specifically? I don't get it. But let's read the following two paragraphs of the book of Isaiah's prophecy. Isaiah continues, at the end of 70 years, it will happen to Tyre as in the song of a prostitute. Take a harp, go around the city, O forgotten prostitute. Do your best at playing on the strings. Make your songs many, in order that you may be remembered. And it must occur at the end of 70 years that Jehovah will turn his attention to Tyre, and she must return to her hire and commit prostitution with all the kingdoms of the earth upon the surface of the ground. Following the fall of Babylon in 539 BCE, Phoenicia became a satrapy of the Medo-Persian Empire. The Persian monarch Cyrus the Great is a tolerant ruler. Under this new rulership, Tyre will resume her former activity and try hard to regain recognition as a world commercial center. Just as a prostitute who has been forgotten and has lost her clientele seeks to attract new clients by going around the city, playing her harp and singing her songs. Will Tyre succeed? Yes, Jehovah will grant her success. In the time, the island city will become so prosperous that toward the end of the 6th century BCE, the prophet Zechariah will say, Tyre proceeded to build a rampart for herself, and to pile up silver like dust and gold like the mire of the streets. So Babylon fell in 539 BCE. Afterwards, it was impossible to serve Babylon, because it ceased to exist as an empire. Why could now the 70 years regarding Tyre end in 539 BCE, but the 70 years regarding the lands of Judah and Jerusalem should last any longer, when we learned that the 70 years regarding the lands of Judah and Jerusalem as prophesied by Jeremiah included the city of Tyre? What? I don't get it. Where the 70 years were the 70 years really a specific time span meant to be used for weird date calculations in the first place? Honestly, I don't think so. To me, it is fact that Watchtower's take on the 70 years does not make any sense at all and contradicts others of their teaching, as we have seen in the book on Isaiah's prophecy. But have you recognized, I will show my little graph again, the 20-year difference between Watchtower's date for Jerusalem's destruction and that of serious secular history? Please keep that in mind. In my next video, I will compare secular history with what Watchtower claims to be true. Stay tuned, and thank you for listening. Till next time.